In a harsh and unforgiving world, one man's peaceful life is destroyed in a single night. Driven by grief, duty, and the need for justice, Caleb sets out on a dangerous journey that will test his strength, his beliefs, and his will to survive. The story begins with an introduction to Caleb, a man living in a modest rural settlement alongside his wife and the rest of a close-knit community. Life in the village depends on cooperation, and each person plays a specific role that helps everyone survive. The opening portion focuses on ordinary daily routines, giving a clear picture of how the people rely on one another, as well as on the land around them. The men, including Caleb, regularly leave the village to hunt, using their experience and knowledge of the terrain to track animals and bring back food. Meanwhile, the women collect fruits, roots, and other edible plants, look after the children, and maintain their homes. Caleb is portrayed as a reliable and skilled hunter who takes his responsibilities seriously. He provides for his family and contributes to the well-being of the entire settlement. As viewers become familiar with the community, the film also highlights their spiritual practices. The villagers believe that natural forces influence their lives, and they honor these forces through rituals and quiet acts of devotion. These beliefs are woven into everyday life rather than treated as separate religious occasions. Respect for tradition guides their behavior and shapes how they understand the world. During this time, the settlement experiences a painful loss. At the time, his wife was close to giving birth. She delivered their child safely, but the effort cost her life. Her death cast a shadow over what should have been a joyful moment. Following the customs of their people, the tribe prepared her body for burial. They believed their rituals would guide her spirit into peace. Even in grief, life had to continue. Caleb accepted another woman from the tribe as his partner so she could help care for the newborn. The community marked the child's arrival with a modest celebration, honoring their traditions while quietly mourning the loss. Not long after, Caleb set out on a hunting trip. Survival during that period depended on gathering food and securing animal hides for clothing and shelter. Before leaving, he looked at his infant and entrusted the tribe to God's care. The journey took him far from home. As he moved through the mountains, he occasionally glanced back at the settlement where his people lived simply, raising birds and working each day with the understanding that death was a natural release from hardship. During his hunt, Caleb paused to rest and soon sensed movement nearby. Alert and focused, he prepared his bow. His skill was evident as he successfully brought down an animal. While he was away, the tribe continued their daily routines. Some worked with leather and fur while others tended to animals. Their calm was shattered when warriors from a rival tribe stormed into the settlement. One villager was killed immediately, and more attackers followed, firing arrows and overwhelming the community. Seeing the danger, Caleb's new wife handed the baby to a young boy and urged him to run. The attack spread quickly from hut to hut. The boy tried to escape but was struck by an arrow and fell while still holding the child. The invaders showed no mercy as they cut down anyone in their path and set the huts on fire. Flames and smoke consumed the village, leaving little chance for survival. From a distance, Caleb noticed smoke rising into the sky. As he drew closer, he realized his home was burning. Meanwhile, the leader of the attackers demanded to know where the tribe kept a sacred stone that held deep spiritual value. When Caleb's wife refused to reveal its location, she was killed. The invaders searched until they found the stone hidden in its container. Satisfied with what they had taken, they prepared to leave, as this had been their main purpose all along. Caleb ran toward the settlement, calling out in desperation. By the time he arrived, the attackers were already departing, leaving destruction behind them. He found his wife's body among the remains and carried her away from the flames. Overcome with fear for his child, he searched the area. After performing the burial rites for his wife, he continued looking through the ruins. The silence around him confirmed that no one else had survived. Eventually, he discovered the young boy lying on the ground. An arrow had taken his life, but the infant was still alive in his arms. Caleb lifted his child, realizing he had lost everyone else he had known. He showed gratitude to the boy by gently holding his hand before taking the baby into his care. Rain began to fall, and Caleb sheltered the infant as he sat among the remains of his tribe, weighed down by grief. When morning came, he walked through what was left of the settlement. At the place where the sacred stone had once been kept, he saw it was gone. He understood that the rival tribe had stolen it. Carrying the boy's body to a nearby cave, he performed the proper burial rites, finding slight comfort in the belief that the boy's spirit was now at peace. Sitting alone with his child, Caleb's sorrow slowly gave way to resolve. The loss of his people and the theft of their sacred stone hardened his heart. Though broken by what had happened, he made a firm decision to pursue those responsible and seek justice for his tribe, no matter the cost. From that point, his path is set. He ties the child securely against his back and heads into the open land ahead. The mountains stretch wide and empty, with no sound except the wind. He leads a goat with him, keeping it alive so the milk can feed the baby when needed. His thoughts are no longer centered on daily survival. Everything now revolves around tracking down the people who destroyed his home. As he moves forward, the baby begins to cry. He stops and checks on him, quickly realizing the child is hungry. He steadies the goat and positions the infant so he can drink. Once the baby is calm again, he resumes walking, carefully studying the ground for signs left behind by the group he is following. He crosses paths with strangers along the way, but there is no exchange beyond brief glances. Different tribes speak in different ways, and understanding between them is limited. He does not attempt to connect. His direction is clear, and he keeps going. After some time, he reaches a spot where ashes are still fresh. The scent of burned wood lingers in the air, telling him the group passed through recently. Rain begins to fall, and he moves behind a large rock to shield the baby while he waits. While resting there, one of the men he has been tracking happens to pass nearby. Acting quickly and without drawing attention, he attacks and overpowers him. The struggle ends fast. Another man, alerted by a brief sound, comes to investigate. He meets the same fate. Once the area is quiet again, he searches their belongings and takes supplies that may help him continue. While checking the camp, he notices a man tied to a tree. It becomes clear that the attackers had taken him captive. He cuts him loose. The freed man looks confused and surprised, then runs off without hesitation. He returns to where he left the baby and goat and stays hidden for a while, both because of the weather and in case others are nearby. Elsewhere, the leader of the raiding group travels with two companions. On their route, they pass an elderly man walking beside a young girl. There is no interaction as both sides continue on their separate ways. He keeps moving across steep terrain and open fields, the baby secured to him and the goat following behind as a steady source of milk. At one point, he notices the man he freed trailing him from a distance. Annoyed, he picks up stones and throws them in warning, shouting for him to stay away. The words may not be understood, but the meaning is clear enough. The man eventually keeps his distance. Food remains a constant need. He climbs a tree to gather fruit and continues doing what he can to keep the child warm and protected from the cold air. Meanwhile, the enemy leader and his companions stop to rest. They build a fire and eat quietly, speaking little. Later, he spots an animal and prepares to hunt. Just before taking the shot, he sees the elderly man and the girl aiming at the same target. Both hunters raise their weapons but pause. Sensing no immediate danger, he lowers his bow. The older man does the same. Without discussion, they share the animal once it is brought down and sit together to eat. No common language is spoken, yet there is no tension between them. As evening settles in, the girl takes out a carved piece of wood and produces a rough sound from it, filling the quiet space around them. He remains focused on the child, holding him close inside the shelter they use for the night. The girl approaches him at one point, attempting to draw near, but he gently pushes her back. His attention is fixed on protecting the baby. She steps away, exchanging a look with the older man who seems to understand without explanation. Soon, thunder rolls across the sky and rain begins again. He stays awake, rocking the child and keeping him covered as the storm passes overhead. When daylight returns, he gets ready to move on. The shelter is quiet and the child is no longer beside him. Not far away, the elderly man watches him depart with a heavy expression, as though hoping he might reconsider and remain with them. After he leaves, the old man steps inside the hut and understands what has happened. The baby has been left in their care. The young woman accepts the child without hesitation and holds him close, clearly ready to raise him as her own. Now alone, he continues across long stretches of land, following the trail of the men he seeks. His search leads him toward a cave. Unseen by him, the enemy leader and his two companions observe him from higher ground. Realizing they have been tracked, the leader sends one of his men to deal with the threat. Inside the cave, he moves carefully, scanning the shadows. The quiet is broken when an arrow suddenly flies past him. He reacts at once and takes cover behind a large rock. Each time he tries to look out, another arrow is released in his direction. The attacker has the advantage of height, making it risky to return fire. He stays low and waits, knowing patience may create an opportunity. Soon, the man above makes a mistake. Attempting to descend, he loses his footing and falls, dying from the impact. The leader and his remaining companion hear the noise but choose not to turn back. He approaches the fallen attacker to confirm he is dead. Frustration shows on his face, as he had intended to face him directly. In anger, he disfigures the body before letting out a cry of rage. Afterward, he kneels by a stream to clean his hands and takes a short rest. Once steady again, he removes the fur garment from the dead man and continues forward, more determined than before. The two men ahead are growing tired as they cross steep mountains and wide plains. Realizing that walking will not be enough, he begins to run, closing the distance. He pushes himself harder, climbing an icy slope without slowing down. The cold air bites at him, but the heavy fur keeps him protected. At last, he sees them in the distance and rushes forward. Suddenly, the ice beneath him gives way. He drops into a deep hollow and remains still. From above, the leader assumes the fall has ended his pursuit and chooses to leave. However, he regains consciousness after some time. His body aches from the impact, and the walls around him are high and slick. There is no simple way back up. Accepting that he must find another route, he gathers 2 stones and manages to spark a small flame. Using the light, he studies the enclosed space and searches for an opening. After careful inspection, he notices a narrow gap in the ice. It is tight and unstable, but it may be his only chance. Drawing in his body as much as possible, he slowly forces himself through the passage, aware that the frozen walls could shift at any moment. He forces himself through the narrow gap for a long time, but the space tightens around him until he cannot move. The flame he had been using goes out, leaving him in the cold darkness. Determined to escape, he swings his axe against the frozen walls to make more room. The surface is slick, and he loses his balance, dropping back down to the bottom. Breathing heavily, he studies the steep walls again. This is not a climb that can be managed by strength alone. The frozen surface offers no grip. Hunger and exhaustion begin to wear him down, and he scrapes bits of ice into his mouth just to keep going. For a moment, he accepts that the pit may become his grave. Then he hears faint sounds above. He looks up as a rope falls into view. Gathering what little strength remains, he grips it and pulls himself upward despite the pain in his body. Inch by inch, he reaches the top. Waiting there is the same young man he once released from captivity. Their eyes meet briefly. Without a word, the young man makes it clear that the debt has been repaid and walks away. He does not waste time. Though injured, he presses on across the snow. His purpose remains fixed. The land rises and falls beneath his steps until he reaches a high point. From there, he notices smoke below. The sight tells him he has finally found the group he has been chasing. At the settlement, the leader and his companion return home. They greet their families, lifting small girls into their arms before checking on their wives. The journey has taken a toll on the remaining companion, whose leg is badly damaged. As he struggles to move, an arrow suddenly strikes him from behind, ending his life. His wife cries out, and the leader rushes forward. Another arrow flies past him, and he realizes someone is hidden nearby. He fires in response and advances carefully, but the attacker is no longer where he expected. Staying alert, he moves through the area with his weapon ready. Without warning, he is struck from behind with an axe. He turns and fights back. The clash is fierce and close. Both men swing with force, each trying to overpower the other. The leader is wounded but refuses to fall. The struggle grows desperate until a heavy blow lands deep, leaving the leader severely injured. Even then, he attempts one last strike. It fails. A final swing ends the fight. He remains there for a moment, watching to be certain the man is truly gone. Only after that does he allow himself to drop to the ground and rest. When he regains some strength, he approaches the remaining members of the tribe, now only a woman and 2 young girls. They mourn their dead in the same way his own people once did. He does not interfere. Inside the leader's dwelling, he searches for the object that started everything. He finds the container and opens it. The prize stone turns out to be a mirror. The discovery brings a quiet realization about the cost of the conflict. Still, he takes it back. He then carries the bodies of the fallen men outside so the woman can complete her rites. Exhausted, he stays there through the night. At one point, the woman attempts to attack him with a spear in revenge. He wakes in time to stop her and disarms her without killing her. Eventually, she withdraws and sits by the fire. When morning comes, he leaves the settlement behind and heads once more toward the mountains. The weather has grown harsher, and his body is worn down from everything he has endured. He slows and finally sinks to the ground as snow gathers around him. After some time, he takes out the mirror and looks at it briefly before throwing it away into the mist, rejecting the object that led to so much loss. He rises again and continues forward through the storm. Suddenly, an arrow strikes him from behind. One survivor has followed him for revenge. With no strength left to fight, he stumbles near the edge of an icy drop and falls. This time, he does not rise. His journey ends there in the frozen silence.